For the Catholic to say, I embrace the Masonic movement and I continue to be a Catholic, incompatible. We don't do that. Many people, sad to say, were ill-informed and they thought joining a Masonic lodge was just like joining a group of friends. You know, the rituals and stuff are entertaining, but I don't take them seriously. Well, you have to take them seriously because the rituals show that this is a mock religion, that this is basically a ripoff, and it contradicts Catholicism.
Catholics and Freemasons, the dialogue. Are we just being gaslit by all this? I mean, God, we've pretty much taught since the 18th century that you can't belong to these secret societies, and there's good reason. And this is coming from a guy who was a Freemason. In fact, I'll be talking about that today on the program with Father Gerald Murray. We're going to be recapping what was this dialogue with the Freemasons. I mean, you know, the Cardinals seemed pretty happy about this opportunity. Coco Palmero just really giddy. So we're going to get Father Gerald Murray's take on all of this.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
There was members of the hierarchy that were going to be meeting in dialogue with the Freemasons. And then we saw the reports, and then that obviously troubled me in particular because I was a Freemason. Before I became Catholic, I was third-degree Master Mason. I have members of my family who are still active Masons. Joining us now to talk about this is Father Gerald Murray. Good morning to you, Father Murray. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Good to be with you.
Why does the Catholic Church teach, or why does canon law state specifically that as Catholics we cannot be members of secret societies?
Yes, well, secret societies such as the Masons propose a worldview and an ideology which contradicts Christian revelation. And in the case of the Masons, they're also, particularly in Europe, act as a society to counter the influence of the church in public life. So the Masons have been known for centuries to essentially conspire with each other to try and de-Christianize the various Catholic countries, France, Spain, Italy, through using powerful, influential positions that they gain, and then putting their insidious ideology into the laws and trying to change the customs of nations. So it's a direct challenge to the church. If you go through the history, particularly of European countries, you'll see conflict and hostility. And the popes are very aware this is not simply politics, people fighting over power. This is an attempt to replace the Christian worldview from the consciousness of people, proposing this mythological set of ideas, the great architect and all the rest. And if you were a Mason, you know, they use rituals which sort of ape the sacramental life of the church and the kind of commitments the Catholics make. It really is a hostile force, and it hasn't changed. Its ideology is the same.
You know, when I became a Freemason, I had to sit in a car to prepare. I had to sit in a car privately with like a sponsor, a mentor of sorts, and he would whisper into my ear the rituals, the sayings, and I had to memorize them. Couldn't write them down, couldn't read them out of a book. He whispered them, I had to memorize them, and then we would go through this ritual. They strip you, if you're wearing a crucifix, they strip it off of you. Your wedding ring, they take it off of you. You are stripped naked and brought into the lodge because, according to their ideology, you are in the darkness, and it was in the light of the lodge that you are being brought in and initiated. That should be like the first big red flag here. But we're seeing some very conflicting and confusing statements coming out, especially His Eminence Cardinal Coco Palmero. He says, quote, things have moved on, and I hope these meetings don't stop there. Says, quote, if it's not possible to think about a permanent discussion, even at the official level, so we can better deal with each other. It seems like there are members of the hierarchy who want to let bygones be bygone. Father Murray, how can we do that when we are so ideologically opposed?
Yeah, Cardinal Coco Palmero and Professor Staglione, Father Staglione, who was a theologian in the Vatican, they went to a meeting with the heads of the different Masonic lodges in Italy to try and give the message that Christianity and Masonry should seek to reconcile with each other, and that this dialogue is the first step. So he talks about an ongoing dialogue. This is essentially a subversion of Christianity out in the open, and it is based on this false notion that doctrinal differences between Catholicism and other religions or movements are immaterial and unimportant. This is a poisonous notion. This reduces religion to precisely what Masonry tries to propose, which is a kind of humanism with some religious trappings to try and inspire people, and then sort of the magical spirit of being an insider. So, the Masons, of course, they're the ones with the secret knowledge, and they're the ones, as you just said, have these forbidden to write things down and all the rest. This is all sort of like teenagers getting together and forming, a club, and nobody's going to know the rules. But it's not, it goes way beyond that, because there's a whole set of ideologies behind it, which are essentially atheistic. This notion of the grand architect of the universe, Revelation contradicts that. God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that's the only God. And a man-made creation has to be rejected.
At the center of the lodges in America is a Bible. It's a Freemason translation. It has secret codes written down the centers of it. But if you were going to a Freemason lodge, let's say in Saudi Arabia, it would be the Quran that would be at the center. They essentially don't care as long as you adhere to some sort of higher power. That's all that really is necessary for the requirement, which again is another big, huge red flag. Now, the reason why I bring this up is, one, it's just so starkly opposed to what we believe. Truth is a person. That person is Jesus Christ, the second person of the Trinity. There is no other. First commandment stuff here. But second, I also want to put on the table and get your take, because it seems like His Holiness Pope Francis has been talking a lot about fraternity and brotherhood over the course of his pontificate. It seems there's a great temptation here to embrace this kind of idea in order to bring people together into some sort of, happy family. But this seems like a slippery slope that could be dangerous. What say you, Father Murray?
Fraternity understood in the church is that we're all brothers and sisters of Christ, the incarnate Son of God. As you mentioned, the second person of the Trinity became man. And the image of the Catholic Church includes this notion of the family of God, established through baptism, nourished through the Holy Eucharist, and united in common belief. That's how fraternity exists in the world. And really, this is the Catholic, very Catholic notion, which is often forgotten, of the social kingship of Christ, that we will only be united humanity when we're united in Christ. So therefore, that can't be forced. That has to be voluntary. We preach the faith. We call people to believe. But once they're united in the church, then they're truly our brothers and sisters. A completely other notion is what we have as sort of globalism of humanism, where we basically say the most important thing in the world is we're all human beings. Everything else is secondary. Therefore, whatever it takes for human beings to get along, that's what we're going to follow. If that means for people rejecting religion, that's fine. If it means embracing it, that's fine. But what we won't tolerate is a group that claims that it has the truth. And that's why the Catholic Church is always right there at the center of attacks of Masonry, because the Catholic Church's doctrine is not only that there's a God, but that He's given us a law that is binding on us. And Masons promote immorality. They do not support the sexual teaching of the Catholic Church. For instance, in Europe, Masons were behind having divorce legalized in many European societies. The French Revolution, which overthrew so much of Christian morality in France, was based on Masonic principles. They act as a secret society to undermine the church in Spain and in Italy. So, Masons claim that all they want is everybody to be, the brotherhood of man. Well, there is no brotherhood of man if there's no fatherhood of God. And God is not a creation of our mind, that there's an architect out there. Oh, we looked at the building, we figured out there was an architect. No, God revealed Himself. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He rose from the dead. The Lenten journey is to remind ourselves that God loved us so much that He died for us. So if we go into other teachings, we are really in trouble.
The Freemasons seem to bring up fiducia supplicans, Father. They seem to think that fiducia supplicans would indicate that if the Catholic Church can all of a sudden recognize same-sex or irregular unions and give couples blessings, why can't they embrace the Freemasons?
You bring up a great point, Joe, and this really is the dynamic that's going on here. Sad to say, Catholic teaching and practice in some areas is being dismantled. The Fiducia Supplicans was the latest example of it. To claim that blessing homosexual couples is consistent with the gospel is false, but that's what's being claimed. Cardinal Fernandez and even Pope Francis continue to defend this document, even though fraternal correction by their African bishop brothers has been stark, and that's not the only ones criticizing it. Earlier, we had the Pope saying that the death penalty is immoral, which the Catholic Church has never taught. The Pope also said in Amoris Laetitia that some people who divorce and remarry can receive communion. And the Church has never taught that. So people on the outside and say, I guess Catholic Church is getting rid of all its hard teachings and it's getting rid of those practices which support the notion that it alone teaches the truth and that secular reality is not a subject for us to embrace. Why in the world would the Catholic Church bless homosexual couples when it teaches that sodomy is a mortal sin? There's no reason, except if you believe in the secular world, which says, well, people do what they do, and we really don't get upset because that's up to them. No, we love them so much, we don't want them to risk hell by committing mortal sin.
Father Murray, if we know someone, loved one, friends, family members, someone else that is in the Freemasons or the secret societies, what should we do about that?
Yes, Catholics should not belong to Freemasonic lodges. They should not embrace Freemasonry. Back in 1983, when the Code of Canon Law was issued, on the same date, Cardinal Ratzinger, who was head of the Congregation of Doctrine of the Faith, issued a document stating that Catholics cannot belong to Freemasonic lodges, cannot be Freemasons, and if they are, they cannot receive Holy Communion because it contradicts membership in the Church by embracing Freemasonic ideology. Many people in the United States are under the impression that Masonry is simply a benevolent association which sponsors hospitals and does good works. And we don't criticize hospitals and good works, but we do criticize an ideology which is incompatible with Catholicism. So any Catholic in a Freemasonic lodge should quit. The basic reason is because they say, I realize now, which I didn't understand, that Catholicism doesn't permit this. No ill will against individual Masons. But for the Catholic to say, I embrace the Masonic movement and I continue to be a Catholic, incompatible. We don't do that. So that would be my advice. And I know that many people, sad to say, were ill-informed and they thought joining a Masonic lodge was just like joining a group of friends. And, the rituals and stuff are entertaining, but I don't take them seriously. Well, you have to take them seriously because the rituals show that this is a mock religion, that this is basically a ripoff of religious rituals, and it contradicts Catholicism.
If a Catholic is a member of the secret society, an active one, should they present themselves to communion?
No, they should not, because what they're doing is a violation of their obligation as a Catholic not to embrace ideologies that go against Catholicism.
If they're not an active member and never have confessed that, but they've never renounced it, or either, should they go to communion then?
Well, let's say I've been to your lodge in 25 years, maybe on the books. Well, you're basically gone from that. And if you realize now that you made it, if you realize that you did this by complete error, well, then just mention in confession, I had no idea what I was getting into. If you knew, however, that it was wrong, then confess it.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.